Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Jeffrey Smith. I'm the director of StediTeachers.org. We welcome you to this webinar today. Sorry for the little confusion here at the beginning, but we're up and running and we're glad to go. We appreciate you attending here today. If you haven't already, you're welcome to download the handouts for the webinar, these slides anyway. They are found at stedi.org/webinars. It's the first webinar listed there, and there's a link, and you can just download those directly if you haven't already done so. If you don't mind, to make sure that you can hear me and that we're broadcasting, if you would, in the chat section, just type in what city you're from and the weather that you have going on there. If you just so we can see that you can hear me. If you'd go ahead and do that, just type in where you're from. Sorry, my mouse is clicking ahead when I'm trying to see the good. So it sounds like you can hear me, and so we are live and we're going on. With us today is Jessica Smith. She's our trainer here at StediTeachers. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thanks for joining us.
You bet. You might bring your mic a little closer. It sounded a little quiet there. So we're going to talk a little bit about classroom management training for struggling teachers. This is permanent teachers, and we want to make sure that we share with you some ideas and how we can help and what we have found to be very effective. Just a little bit of background about StediTeachers and about Stedi.org itself. We started the Substitute Teaching Institute at Utah State University in 1995. We were focusing on teacher training at the time. We were doing a lot of permanent teacher training and as well as training with specialists. We were training, we started then training substitute teachers. So what we've been doing for the last 20 years is helping school districts and organizations nationwide train substitute teachers in not only classroom management, teaching strategies, and how to be prepared and professional. So that's what we're known for the most, and that has been going very, very well. As I mentioned, this is early on when we started the Institute. We got a federal grant from the U.S. Department of Education there at Utah State University, which launched us nationally. And so we've been training teachers nationally since about 1995, and then the grant came in 1997. All along, we've had districts say, we love your stuff. Do you have anything for permanent teachers? And so this year, Jessica created this course for permanent teachers, classroom management for permanent teachers through StediTeachers.org. And at Utah State, one of my colleagues was Dr. Glenn Latham, and he was a prolific writer and researcher in human behavior. He wrote a number of books, both in teacher training and in classroom management. He also wrote parenting books and to help parents, because behavior is the same whether it's a child, parent, or teacher, student. And so he did a lot of research there, and I just fell in love with him and his work, and want to continue what he developed there. And so Jessica's taken his research material and helped create this course for StediTeachers. So this is based on his work, Dr. Glenn Latham. We give him credit for the research and the background information. Jessica is one of the best practitioners of his material that I know of. Her background is, and she'll probably explain a little bit about it, not only being a teacher, a substitute teacher, a permanent teacher, a substitute teacher, but had worked in Girls and Boys Club. And Jessica, why don't you take it from here? Tell us a little bit about your background, and then move on into the course and how this new StediTeachers course can help.
Great. Thank you. I'm excited to be here and talk about my favorite subject, which is classroom management. I attended trainings. I've conducted trainings through schools, school districts nationally, and one thing I heard in several school districts is this is great information for substitute teachers. We do wish we had it for permanent teachers. And then they would go on to say, we're good at training our permanent teachers in teaching strategies, but classroom management is a little bit difficult for us. And I thought, classroom management is my favorite part of teaching. When problem behaviors arise, I just get giddy. I look forward to that. It's the variable in the classroom, something that we as teachers can't plan for or prepare for. It's just something we have to be ready for and prevent problem behaviors from happening as best we can. So as Jeff mentioned, I worked at Boys and Girls Club through college, and this was where I gained strong classroom management skills because we had nothing to teach the kids. We just had over 100 kids for 8 hours a day, and the whole point was that they go home alive at the end of the day. So we just had to keep them alive, feed them a snack here and there, and then the rest of it was just managing these just over 100 kids all day, every day. And it was not easy. And my coworker and I looked at each other one day and said, they cannot pay us enough to come back tomorrow. I enjoyed the kids one-on-one, but as a whole group, they were difficult to manage. I was frustrated, but I'd known I'd always wanted to be a teacher. And so for me to prepare best for my long-term goals, I needed strong classroom management skills. And luckily, Jeff is my dad, and I had a father in the industry of training substitute teachers. So he gave me Dr. Latham's research, and I dived in, and my life has never been the same since. And my coworker, interestingly enough, he came back to work the next day and he said, I think we should start learning Dr. Latham's material. And I said, you too? And he said, what? You found Dr. Latham as well? And I said, yeah. And I think he's just the person to take us through how to become strong in the area of classroom management. So after working for several years with Boys and Girls Club, I graduated from Utah State University with a degree in Family and Consumer Sciences Education. And I was a student teaching. And the first day of student teaching, I was student teaching in a middle school, and which is like my dream. Student teaching, middle school, home ec, all of it was just perfect combination for me. And the teacher, my job the first week in the school was to observe her. And by fifth hour, I was like, I cannot sit here and just observe anymore. It's not in my nature in a classroom to just sit in the back and be quiet. And so I asked her, for this last period, can I teach these students? And I've watched your lesson. I think I know the material. Do you mind if I just take over? And she was like, yeah, that'd be great. Thanks for asking. And so the kids came in. I had a starter activity for them to work on. I introduced myself, and we were off and away. And she observed me for about 10 or 15 minutes, and the rest of the semester, they were mine. So inch by inch, I took over the other classes, and it was just a dream scenario for me to be able to jump in that quickly. She said, oh, you've obviously taught before, and it's just because classroom management was a strength for me after being at Boys and Girls Club. So I graduated in December, and it's not easy to find a job in December, so I substitute taught for a while, all ages, K through 12. I did a lot of younger grades because I wanted to stay sharp on my classroom management skills. And then one day in March, I got a phone call and said, would you come apply for this or interview for this job opening? And I said, sure. So I went to the school. They interviewed me Wednesday, hired me Friday, and I started Monday. So this was in March, and it was fun to go walk into another teacher's classroom and make it my own. And it was just the way I enjoyed teaching, because I didn't have to worry about it for the whole summer. I could just dive right in and start teaching. So some of these skills, I want to overview them with you. What we teach in the StediTeachers course that's specifically for classroom management. Let's see if I can get the slides to change here. All right. So this is an overview, a concept map of the skills that we teach in the course. And I know that'll probably be difficult to see over the screen, but I wanted you to see all in one place everything we teach. And this is part of the workbook that's associated with the course. There are 5 skills that we teach teachers. And I like that they're skills because they're action items. Oftentimes when we're attending university, we learn just the theory behind behavior and behavior management. And then we're expected to make decisions based on our knowledge of theory. When I was first teaching, I just needed someone to tell me what to do. And so that's why these skills were so useful for me, because they're action oriented. And I quickly learned that if I wanted to manage student behavior, it was all in managing my own behavior. And so we'll look a little bit more closely at these 5 skills. So skill 1 is teaching expectations. Teachers need to make sure that students know what they expect of them. Teachers need to know what they expect students to do. It's hard for us to know our own expectations unless somebody doesn't meet them. We don't know what our expectations are. So teachers need to be aware of what they want from students and then how to communicate that to those students so they can meet those expectations. And this is something we go through in the course, is identifying our expectations and ways that we're going to teach them. And we have to be very careful and very intentional on making sure the students understand. Oftentimes teachers say, all right, any questions? Okay, go ahead and go. And no one knows what to ask, but if they ask a few students individually, all right, what do we need to be doing? What materials are you going to need? How long do we have to accomplish this activity? When they ask students those specific questions, it becomes very clear if students know whether or not or the teacher knows whether or not the students understand the expectations, and then possibly role playing. And most importantly, that the teacher follows those expectations and is modeling those expectations regularly. Skill 2, we work on getting and keeping students on task. So having a starter activity on the board, greeting students at the door, making sure there's the positive note for the beginning of the day, directing them to a starter activity that they can work on their own. And then the teacher can take roll and then quickly transition to the first activity. That sets up a strong tone for the day, and it's easier to keep students on task once you've got them on task. Also, we teach teachers to be on their feet and be near the students walking around. And that leads into skill number 3 of increasing positive interactions. When we are walking around the classroom, we're not looking for students who are doing things wrong. We're not looking to catch them disobeying, or we are looking for what they're doing right. And we are maintaining a ratio of 8 positive interactions to every 1 negative or corrective interaction. Students respond best to positive consequences than to negative consequences. And so we're working to show the students that if you want my attention as a teacher, if you want my attention, you need to be doing what is right and not what is wrong. And so by maintaining a high ratio of positive interactions, that's the fastest way to improve a classroom environment to help students feel safe, comfortable, and it's a perfect way for teachers to learn to enjoy their students. That's another, this is another reason these skills appealed to me, was I could be a positive person rather than condoning always students for what they were doing wrong. These helped switch my mentality for looking for all the things that are going right. Teachers are far more likely to not notice what students are doing right. And so we're training our brains and our eyes and our words to only focus on the positive and what students are doing well. Now these first 3 skills and the last skill are all focused on preventing inappropriate behavior from happening. We're just creating a learning environment where students can behave well. There are times when we need to respond to student behavior that is consequential. So there are two types of inappropriate student behavior in a classroom, and that's consequential and inconsequential behavior. So we determine if it's consequential, then we need to respond to it. And then the course outlines several ways to non-coercively still maintain a safe environment, but handle these consequential behaviors. And then skill 5, avoid being trapped. This section always hurts my feelings because most of these traps I've fallen into. So we'll look a little bit more in what is in the course. There's a workbook associated, and each of the skills, after introducing the skill, teaching the skill, learners are invited to observe this skill. Some of them they'll observe in themselves. Oftentimes it's go and observe another teacher about how they teach expectations. So there's a worksheet in there that they take into a classroom of another teacher and they start noticing how a teacher teaches their expectations, questions students about those expectations. So observations are a key portion of this course. Additionally, as I mentioned before, oftentimes we don't know our own expectations, so there's a worksheet in the book to help us establish our expectations. Again, self-evaluation is part of it, and then there's several pages for notes. So just as an example, what do we do when the whole class is off task? How do we stop and redirect the whole class's attention? And then again, we're taking time to contemplate, okay, which behavior is consequential, which behavior is inconsequential. These inconsequentials are the majority, these inconsequential behaviors are the majority of inappropriate behavior that's happening in the classroom. These are just annoying behavior, and we just ignore them. And so then we determine what makes a behavior consequential and how to respond to it. The majority of the course is video, so that's what this shows here. We're in Skill 1, Teaching Expectations. There are 3 to 5 minute videos explaining a concept. Then again, it goes into each of the strategies associated with this skill, and then the workbook that includes the observation. All right, just as a closer look to these traps. These are all the traps. Most of these I've fallen into on a regular basis. I try to avoid them. We identify these traps because they're ineffective in getting and keeping students on task. So the questioning trap, for example, why did you do that, only leads to a longer and longer conversation when really we just need the students back on task. And then as part of the review, in the workbook, there's a flow chart. So we've learned these 5 skills. Now, what does it look like during the course of a day? And so this flow chart outlines how a class period might go and how these skills would be implemented during the class period. All right, Jeff, do you want to talk to us about the website?
You bet. Thanks, Jess. Very good outline of what the course is and what it covers. I would say it's about 4 or 5 hours, probably 3 hours in the course, and then observation type things. Would you say, Jess, would be about
yes.
Right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the site itself is StediTeachers.org. And the one thing you can do there is you can download a flyer that's meant for your teachers if you want to pass that out to your teachers, those that you might want to invite to participate in the class. Also, you can select the quantity discount so you can see what it is there. And I'm going to exit out of here and go to this is the website itself, so you can see what's happening. Later. But you know what? Anyway, so here's the website itself, and you can see there's a little intro video by Jessica. Down at the bottom is the flyer. So if you click on this is the flyer. It looks just like the website, but it just talks about what it is. It gives a coupon code for individual purchases. It's regularly $29.99 right now, but it gives half off, so for $15 for any individual substitute, for any individual teacher, whether it's permanent teacher, art, music, computer, media specialist, or other specialist in this 5-hour course. So that's what that is. That's the flyer here at the bottom of the page. Also, the individual teachers can receive a newsletter, join the Facebook group, download the app. They can take the course to the app. They can then purchase the online course themselves, or the quantity discounts. This is where districts would go. Right now we have a great sale on anything because it's brand new. We want to introduce it. It's $15 regardless of what quantity a district wants to get right now. And so you just choose the quantity, for example, and that's a great introductory price. We want to make sure that we get this out and into the hands of teachers who could use it right away. And so we've lowered it just to do that. We've got a number of teachers that are taking it, even though we launched it in March, just last month. We have a number of teachers already in the course and taking the course. Great feedback on not only the coursework itself, but the observations. Often not knowing what to look for, they really miss the nuances of teaching. And so by going through the course and then identifying those things, so when they do go see how a teacher redirects inappropriate behavior, those things, we talked about it in the course, and then when they get in the classroom, they can observe it and see it, and then recognize it when they need to change their own behavior. So that's what the course is here, and you take advantage of that. So the quantity discounts for now for what's going on through the end of the year, at least the school year, June 30th. Here's the quantity discounts, as I mentioned there. One thing we're doing, linking it with our substitute teacher handbook, because this is new and because the year end, a lot of districts, you have year end funds that they need to spend. And so we do sell a lot of handbooks, substitute teacher handbooks between now and the end of the year. We want to link for a district, because some of you I know work with substitutes besides permanent teachers, with the handbook, the substitute teacher handbook. If districts who order that through the end of the year will get actually that same number of classroom management courses for free. So for every handbook. And that's the case. Our lowest quantity discount, for example, for the handbook is about $11. So you can get a $15 course plus a $24 handbook, all for $11 in quantity discounts. And so it's really a good way to go through the end of the year and getting that implemented in your school, as well as substitute teacher training. So those are just a thing that we have going on here at the end of this year. One thing we do have coming up that you might be interested in as well is our Sub-Solutions conferences. We're talking substitute teaching, recruiting, training, and retaining of substitute teachers for district administrators or administrators from organizations. We're in at Jackson Lake Lodge in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, June 27th through the 29th. One of the presentations we'll be making is on the StediTeachers and the online course for permanent teachers. But the conference we're talking about, substitute teaching, this is not only a great place, that's actually the view out of our conference room. That picture right there is what we look at while we have the conference going on. I know most people don't listen to me. They want to look out the window at the conference, but it is a great conference. We do have a webinar coming up you'll get an email from us tomorrow as a follow-up from this webinar, so you can see where to review the webinar. It'll also have a link to register for a webinar we have coming up next week on what to expect at Sub-Solutions this year. And so you're welcome to register for that. Again, that's a free webinar coming up just next week. If you have any questions, feel free to direct them to Jessica at StediTeachers.org. Or the phone number there, and just ask for Jessica. But we'd be glad to work with you in implementing this in your district, getting your permanent teachers who are struggling, or even all teachers. You'll be hiring a number of teachers this year. Many of them right out of college don't have the experience that Jessica had, and they're very timid. 62% of those coming out of teacher colleges say they feel unprepared. This is a great way to get them introduced to classroom management and a very practical classroom management course. As Jessica mentioned, it's skill-based. We've been training teachers for now 22 years in these skills, and I'll tell you, those who pick it up and implement it just make a huge difference in their teaching. And so we know how to train them. We know how to train teachers. We know what it takes to help them improve their classroom management skills. So please feel free to reach out to Jessica. Thanks for attending the webinar, and this will be posted tomorrow if you want to review it at stedi.org/webinars. Thank you again for attending, and we hope to talk to you soon.